Hi, this is Analytics, and welcome to another lesson. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts or questions in the comments. Let's get started. In this video, I'm going to explore the number column ribbon in Power Query. I have a simple table with only 2 columns and a few numbers, only to show you what each option there will return you. And I'm going to load it in Power Query. It's an Excel file. And this on the transform tab, this is the group that we're going to study in this lesson. Let me call this table, I'm going to call it numbers. And the statistics button is going to give me aggregations. If you still don't know what an aggregation is, please watch our video on aggregations. It's a very important concept. You have to know it. And the aggregation could be done with the sum. For example, I'm selecting the first column, column A. If I click sum, it's going to sum up all the values in the column. If I click transform and maximum, it's going to give me the maximum number in the column, which in this case is 100, or the minimum value. The minimum is 1. Well, actually, let me choose the second column, it's column B, and the minimum number here would be my negative 5. Okay, negative 5 minimum. Well, oh no, actually I have negative 40 right here. Negative 40 is going to be the minimum number in column B. Again, minimum negative 40. Okay, it's very easy. And I could get the average, the standard deviation, or I could count the values. Let me count how many values I have in column A. Well, actually, I know I have 17 values, okay? 17 values. Let me get the values count, just selecting count values, 17, all right. But, you know, you can see that I have 5 2 times, and what else? 3 is also repeating. So actually I have 17 values, but these are not 17 unique values. So how many unique values do I have? I just click transform, and from the statistics button, please count the distinct value. I only have 15 distinct values, so it will not count repeated values. Okay, that's very easy. Now let's go to the standard button, and we have very interesting options here. I could add, if I click the add button, I can add a certain number to each value in the column. Pay attention, it's the same value that is going to be added to each value in each row of the column. So if I add, for example, 5, so 5 will be added to each of the values in the column. Very easy. And I can do, instead of adding a number, I can multiply everything by a number, times 10. There you go. Or I can do the same, dividing by a number, subtracting a number. It's very easy. I just want to show you the difference between the divide option and the integer divide option. If I divide the values, for example, by 10, so let me use the first row in column A as an example. If I divide each number in this column by 10, in the first row, 1 is going to be 0.1, right? 2 is going to be 0.2. Okay, it's a decimal number, and you can see the data type was changed to a decimal number. But if instead of dividing, I use the integer divide and divide again by 10, you will have round numbers. And of course, 1 divided by 10 was supposed to be 0.1, but as Power Query will return integers, will return whole numbers, this is going to be 0. 2 divided by 10 is 0.2. As an integer is going to be 0 again. And for example, 15 divided by 10 would be 1.5. But as I only will have a whole number, this is going to return me 1. Let's do it. And there you go, just like I said. And Modulo will give you the remaining of a division. For example, let me divide all the numbers by 10. If I divide all the numbers by 10, let's say Let's take 15 as an example. If you, of course, every value in the column will be divided by 10. I'm just picking a few numbers as specific examples because these are easier examples to understand. But if you divide 15 by 10, the remainder is 5, right? If you divide it by 10 and the modulo option will give you only the remainder. If you divide everything by 10, okay, 15 will give you 5 as a remainder. If you divide it 5 by 10, so you get 0 and 5 is the remainder. If you divide 1 by 10, it's 0 and the remainder is 1. And I believe you got the idea. And now the percentage. The first option is to calculate a certain percentage of each number in the column, a certain percentage of each number in the column. For example, if I want to calculate 10% of each value in the column, I will have, starting from 10% will be 1, then 15 will be 1.5, 2, 3, 4, and the last one will be 10. Let's do it. I will calculate the percentage, and I want to take 10% of each value in the column. The first column will be 0.1, and that's it. Very, very easy, very intuitive. You're just calculating a certain percentage of each value in the column. But the second choice, the second option, percent of, this is going to give you how many percent these values represent of a certain value. For example, 1 represents how many percent of a certain value that I'm going to insert. Let me show you how it works. It's going to make more sense. For example, if I'm using 100 as my basis, so in the first row, it's going to return me how much percent 1 represents of 100. 50, how much percent is 50 of 100, which is 50%. And how much 100 represents of 100, it is 100%. And how much 10 represents of 100, it's 10%. So you will see actually no difference in the column. The calculation was performed, only the numbers didn't change because 1 represents 1% of 100, 2 represents 2% of 100. So maybe this wasn't the best example ever. Let me do another example. Let me use percentage of 10. I believe it's going to make more sense to you. Now you can see that 1 is how much percent of 10. 1 represents 10% of 10. 2 represents 20% of 10. 10 represents 100% of 10. And 100 represents 1,000% of 10. Let's do it. And there you go. I hope you got the idea. That's very simple. Now let's use the scientific button. And this one is very useful. And absolute value, it's very easy. Only it will return you positive values, even if you have negative values in the column. Let's use column B. So you have -5, -5, -15, -20, -30. And if you click absolute value, it's going to return only positive values, okay? Only absolute values. If you use the power, you can calculate the powers. For example, if you can square all the values in the column, and if you square all the values, there you go. For example, 100 squared is 1,000, and -5, it before the change, it was -5. -5 squared is 25. So it's very simple. And I can also choose, instead of squaring it, I can make it to the cube, make it to the third power, or any power that I want. If I click the third option, I can select to which power I'm going to raise these numbers to. For example, if I raise it to power 1, of course, all the values are going to be the same. Very easy. Now let's use the square root. The square root is so simple. What is the square root, for example, of 100? It's 10. And the square root, of course, for negative numbers, you don't have square roots. But if you use it in column A, so the square root of 100 is 10, of 1 is 1, and that is very easy too. The exponent option, this is very cool. This is going to give you the Euler's number raised to these powers. So this column, the selected column, in this case column A, the numbers in column A will be the powers to which you are raising the Euler's number. So what it will return you, it will return you the Euler's number raised to 1, Euler's number raised to 2, which is Euler's number squared, Euler's numbers raised to the third power, and so on and so forth. Let me click exponent, and you can see that in the first row in which you had 1, so it returned you 2.718 and so on, which is precisely Euler's number. And as it was raised to the first power, raised to 1, so it's Euler's number itself. This is squared. This is Euler's number raised to the third power, to the fourth power, and so on and so forth. Now, base 10 logarithm. It will return you the power to which 10 has to be raised in order to reach these numbers. The power to which 10 has to be raised to reach these numbers. For example, to what power do you have to raise 10 to reach 100? You have to raise it to the second power. You have to square it. So let's use the base 10, and there you go. You will have 2, because you have to raise 10 to 2 to square 10 so you can reach 100. Okay, and then again 10, you have to raise 10 to the first power to reach 10 as a result. Okay, and also you can have the natural logarithm. So this is going to return you the power to which the Euler's number has to be raised in order to reach these numbers right here. For example, if I click natural, it means 1 has to be raised, the Euler's number has to be raised to 0 to reach 1, and using the last row that used to be 100, it means that the Euler's number has to be raised to this power to reach 100. Okay, that's not it's easy to use. Maybe the concept is a little complicated, but it's very easy to do in Power Query. And factorial is easy. Let me remove the last step. And factorial is just pretty much, for example, let me give you a quick example. The factorial of 2 is 2 times 1. Factorial of 3 is 3 times 2 times 1. And the factorial of 5 is 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. This is very useful for calculating probabilities and combinations. So this may be important when working with statistics and probability. That will be it. We're not getting into trigonometry. That is too complicated to me. And information that is important, it's going to give you, let's test if the numbers in this column are even. Okay, it will return you false or true. 1 is false. 1 is false because I'm testing if it's even or not. 1 false, 1 is not even. 2 true, 2 is even, 4 is even. Okay, so this is just going to test if numbers are even or not. Consider yes as true and no as false. And we can run the same test, not to see if it's even, but to see if it's odd. It's the same thing, only the results will be flipped. And using this column, second column, I have negative numbers in the second column, and I can test the sign. So 1 means it's a positive number, -1 means it's a negative number. And finally, let's work with rounding. I will remove this second column because I don't need it anymore. Okay, I will use, just to create decimal numbers, let me again calculate the exponents just to get some creepy numbers. To round these numbers, I can use the rounding button, and we have 3 main options. The first one is very easy. I'm going to round the number up to the next upper integer. For example, in row 1, I have 2.7. Put 2.7. The closest possible whole numbers would be 2 or 3. So if I click round up, it's going to return me a 3. And if I round it down, it's going to return me a 2. So pretty much these options will give me the closest integers up or down. But if I click the round, I have yet another resource that is the decimal places. So I can choose how many decimal places I will get. For example, if I choose 3 decimal places, it's going to be rounded to 3 decimal places. Of course, it's going to round up or down, and Power Query will automatically understand what is the closest number, the closest decimal place, up or down. And the first 2 options I can choose if it's being rounded up or down. And the third option I will not choose. Power Query will automatically understand and find what is the closest decimal number according to the number of decimal places that I chose. And of course, I can get a round number too if I just select 0 decimal places. Okay, so in this case, Power Query recognized that the closest whole number was 3 instead of 2, and taking the first row as an example. But look, in the 5th and 6th rows, I have 148.4. This is closest to 148 than to 149. So it was rounded to 148, and Power Query did it by itself. Okay, I believe we're done studying the transform tab. The date and time column ribbon, this group right here, we have already studied it. This one, we're not going over that right now, maybe in the future. And we're moving on to the add column tab. And there's a bunch of cool stuff here for us. As you can see, many of the options here are the same as in the other tabs. For example, the format button, extract button, and the standard button, statistics button, and all of these buttons were studied. We studied all of them in the previous videos, and they are repeating in the add column tab, same way they were in the transform tab, because as we have studied in previous videos, the same transformations in the transform tab can be done in the add column tab. The only difference is that in the transform tab, everything we do here will replace the original data in the selected column. When you're using the add column tab, it's not going to replace anything in your original data. It is going to add a new column with the transformations you just created. Let's just set this down. Let me bring this column back to the way it was before calculated exponents. Okay, so in this tab, if I select, for example, I want to square it. Okay, so I'm in the transform tab. So these values are going to be replaced with the new ones. I will square it. This is going to be replaced. If I do the same action in the add column tab, I'm going to do the same calculation. I'm going to square all the numbers. Only instead of replacing these values with the squared ones, a new column will be added. That's why you call this tab add column instead of transform. Okay, square, and there you go. It's the very same calculation. Only instead of replacing the values, you are creating a new column with the same calculation. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe, like this video, share the content with your friends, and see you in the next video.